Welcome back to the Turnaround Boardroom. I am your host, Paul Maskill, and this podcast is for home service business owners who want to understand their numbers better. We stop lying to ourselves. We remove our emotions, remove our ego and the excuses, and let the numbers guide us. We focus on helping home service business owners create predictable profitability and consistent positive cash flow. Today, we have a fellow home service business owner on the show. This is not just his story. This is where we dive into the good, the bad, and the ugly of an actual business. Remember, all of our episodes discuss real businesses. Nothing discussed should be considered financial, legal, or tax advice for your specific situation. Every business, including yours, is structurally different. Today, we have with us Trey McWilliams. Trey is the third generation owner of McWilliams Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing, a residential service company based in Lufkin, Texas. He's also the founder of Blue Cardinal Home Services Group, a private equity-backed platform that acquires and scales HVAC and plumbing companies across the country. He employs over 400 employees spanning locations in Texas, Arizona, Kansas City, Birmingham, Alabama, and Augusta, Georgia. So that is Trey. Trey, thank you so much for being here. What's going on in Texas today?
Rain, which isn't good for the air conditioning world. So I'm sure everybody can have that struggle. So.
I definitely hear you there. So really excited to have you on the show. It's always good when our listeners can learn from other people that have done what they're looking to do. So just kind of give our listeners get started, go all the way back. I know it's third generation, but how did you get involved in the business?
Yeah, so I grew up in it. So grandfather started the business. Dad followed his footsteps out of high school. So I had the great privilege at a young age to ride with my grandfather, and through junior high, through high school, began to run service with my grandfather through high school, and then graduated high school and then done what I thought I was supposed to do: joined the family business and went to work. And not long after that, married my high school sweetheart, and then that's really kind of where all the story begins to take place. Is that's when I kind of realized that this business was a lifestyle business, and I wanted more. I really wanted a career, and I needed to be able to provide for my family. At the same time, my dad needed to be able to provide for his family. So a lot of the financial and scale questions really started percolating pretty heavy a couple years into my professional journey.
So kind of walk us through then how you transition from, because we've really seen this kind of come to fruition in the last 5 or 6 years. I think historically everyone thought HVAC, plumbing, electrical, it was just kind of a lifestyle business. I grew up in the trades. My dad was a one-man band. Everyone he worked around was a one-man band. But obviously you didn't want to just be a one-man band. You wanted a career. You wanted to provide for your family. You wanted to build wealth. So how did that transition start to take place? Because I think it's always an interesting dynamic when it's a family business and there might be other decision makers at the table.
Yeah. Well, I think pain and fear drives a lot of action. So for me, I watched a dad that worked really, really hard and never missed a football game, basketball game, baseball game of mine growing up. But at the same time carried this financial burden of the business was always just barely making it. And, what really created the change for me was I didn't like seeing my dad in that situation. And I didn't want my wife and myself to be in that situation. And something I struggled with, at the time being 20 years old, watching a dad, struggle to make payroll. And again, it had its highs and lows. Right during summer, life was great. During winter, it was everything was on fire, and we were trying to figure out how to make do. Paul, I think really where I tried all the different avenues I thought I could. But this really came to the reality is my dad not capable? Is he not willing? Or does he not have the energy? And I truly believe my dad just didn't have the exposure and he didn't have the energy anymore. And that's when I kind of came to the conclusion, if not me, then who? And I had the conversation with Dad and was very fortunate. No, it wasn't the first conversation we've had, but it didn't take very many that me and him had some honest conversation of like, hey, I came to him with really not with a complaint, but what can I do? And I had some ideas of what I thought we should do, but was very open to taking direction from him. and was very fortunate to have a dad say, Trey, like, there's going to be a price to be paid here. It's going to take a lot of change, but if you're willing to pay the price, I'll get behind you. And, from there, we started just, at the basics, processes. What do we want to be? And I think that's really where, Paul, I think I had a vision very early on what I wanted to build. And that was because of having great exposure to, I saw what good businesses look like, right? So it wasn't that I just sat there and dreamed up all these great things. It was out there and I got exposure to it, and that gave me the motivation. And I began to really like pour into that and understood that there was going to be a price to be paid, but I knew what was on the other side. So I was willing to pay the price.
Yeah. And it's a pretty common theme out there where it's like, we're doing just enough to break even, barely making payroll. And, I tell everybody, like, if you can break even, you can make 10%, you can make 20%. Like, if you can figure out how to stay in business for this long, we could also figure out how to stay in this business this long and actually make money. Obviously, as you guys went through, you got to do things differently, build the processes, procedures, get the people in place, get the pricing right and all that. So give our listeners just kind of like a timeline. When did this, when did you roughly, when was this conversation had with you and your dad? And then what was kind of the next, what did business look like after that before you got to where you are today?
Yeah. I mean, so, from a 2010 to a 2018 timeline, 2010 kind of being that time and place that we got to change things. We were doing $1.2 million in revenue, and probably about 50% of that was a combination of heavier commercial work, like plan and spec work, some new construction. So I would say that at the time we were probably a $600,000 pure resi company and another $600,000 of stuff. And, over that period from 2010 to 2018, we done a couple things. We bought a couple. Well, we started scaling pretty quickly. Really got marketing dialed in. There's a lot of things that went into that. Our brand ambassador community involvement really picked up. Between 2010 to 2013, the only person that was left in the business that was still in there for 2010 was my aunt. So 20-year employees didn't make it, wasn't willing to change. They were, and some of it was my dad's fault for building a culture that they accepted it, and honestly even created some of it. But when we went the different direction, it was a major turnover, which means if you're listening to this call and you're in that situation, we all know, like, when you fire Johnny, that means you get to take Johnny's call that weekend and you get to go pick up so there was a true pain every time I had to make a change that I inherited more workload. But it really started that culture change. And then by 2013, I feel like the wheels were on the bus, and we started really making great progress. And then we purchased a couple small businesses, like $1 million revenue businesses, two of them. And then we purchased a $2 million plumbing business. So between 2010 to 2018, we went from $1 million to about $28 million, and $28 million was pretty pure, probably about $24 million of pure resi play, $4 million of commercial. And
that's incredible. And I appreciate kind of the vulnerability to really kind of get into the numbers, because there's so many people that get stuck where you were stuck. Hey, we've got, we're doing a couple $1 million, half of it's construction and miscellaneous stuff. We don't want to turn that off because we need the revenue, and we've got these people, they've been here a long time, and we don't want to have the difficult conversation to tell Peggy, like, hey, appreciate you answering the phone the last 20 years, but it doesn't work anymore. Or, the technician who just doesn't want to sell and doesn't want to give options, or the technician who, only wants to do a certain type of work. Through that process, 2010, you're doing, call it 600,000 in revenue to, 1 million, if you include the miscellaneous stuff, to 28 million in 2018. What were some of the pivotal things? I know you highlighted some of them, like the team is different, our model's different, marketing's ramped up, but what were some of the biggest moments that when they hit, you're like, we're on to something? Because when you have that big vision and you start getting rid of people and you start saying no to revenue, that can be nerve-wracking. That can be stressful. People are going to question your decision. What were some of like the bigger moments where it hit and you're like, okay, we're on the right track?
Well, I think getting the confidence it took to spend that first big spin in marketing, right? Like, we're going to do this, and like, we're buying the boat. There, like, we didn't, when we started spending $80,000 in marketing dollars, we didn't have $80,000 in the bank. The only way the marketing bill got paid is we had to execute. That was it. Like, so we were spending money we didn't have. Now, did we believe in the plan? Yes. Did we believe in the people? Yes. And were we willing, like, we're going to say no to failure. But I can remember, like, my dad and even me, like, I'm like, cause my dad is more the marketer. So like, he's a very creative. I'm a structure guy. Like, you give me too much to do and let me go do that. I hate creating jobs, but I will get them done. So me and him really like, and we really split the role up as like, he was focused on tomorrow and I was focused on today. And then as we begin to scale the business, obviously he stepped down that role and I hired and partnered with people that took on those roles. But, I think for me was marketing was getting dialed in. And when I say marketing, Paul, like the thing that took me out of my comfort zone is there's a huge piece of marketing that you can do that can be paid with sweat equity. It's community marketing. It's being at every event. It's making sure that you're at the baseball park opening day with your banner. So we did the grassroots hard marketing, and which means I would, it seemed like every afternoon I had somewhere to be. My sister had somewhere to be. Leaders in my business had somewhere to be. But we were making an impact that didn't require anything but our time. And I think it got people bought in and it made them respect the dollar a little better, more. And so I think our whole like community involvement, brand ambassador strategy we had, that was kind of a critical piece. And then culturally, I think we started hiring a lot smarter people than myself. But you had to be able, which created another burden because, we're in a people building business and my job is to create opportunity. And if you leave me for more opportunities, shame on me. So like that became a feat in itself because we were hiring, there's a couple of major hires that we did. Was number one was, probably the 4 or 5 people that I hired that were like critical team members of mine today, they were overhired. Shay was, a college graduate with a biology degree. He had sold cars, but unbelievable communicator. And we brought him on as a salesperson when he was a first salesperson. So he built the sales process. He built the training process. And then he morphed into, as we began to scale that organization, Shay stayed at the top of that. And then, Brad Pesic was a math teacher at the high school, ready for a change. And he came in and started building out processes, but he started in my call center. He built out all the processes because math people are great at processes. And then, he went into the service department, then he went into the sales department, install department, finance department, ultimately became my CFO. And, so we really started like pouring in and just recruiting great talent that was smarter than me in a lot of different things. And, I really started to, I think, develop the great processes and the energy it takes. Because growing a business, you're going to get punched in the mouth a lot. And, it's a lot funner when you got a bunch of people that's fighting with you. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's amazing, to look at that transformation. I know those 8 years probably some days felt like it was, 80 years and other days it's flying by. But obviously it started with making those difficult decisions and having those difficult conversations, whether it's, hey, we're not going to do new construction anymore, or, hey, we're not going to hire these type of people anymore, or, hey, you don't work here anymore. But then you flip that and you start selling the vision on this is where we want to go. And you start to acquire these teammates that wouldn't join you if you were just another HVAC company, if you want to call it that, right? Like they saw the bigger vision of like, I'm going to put in the work so then I can get here one day. And lo and behold, it actually happened. But I think that the most important part that you mentioned that I think it's overlooked so often in this digital world is so many business owners, we just want to throw money at a problem of like, hire the new marketing company, try the new marketing strategy. We'll spend the money. We think there's this magic button that if we just put money in, it's going to spit more money out. But you just hit on it. We got involved in the community. At the end of the day, these are small businesses and small communities that everybody knows everybody. And even though everything's so digital today, if somebody needs a plumber or an HVAC technician, they're going to ask their friends, family, neighbors, Facebook group, and it's like, who do you know, right? They're going to be like, oh, we see this person all the time at the baseball games. We see this person all the time at the local events. So I want to I really want to hammer that home for the listeners that you can't just throw a bunch of money at a problem. You got to be a part of the community. You got to put in the work. Or like it sounds like you mentioned you have this brand ambassador program. What does that look like today to have a brand ambassador within your community?
Yeah, so I think a brand ambassador, it depends on what scale you're at, right? So we started off and it was the lady that was over the call center, and she also was marketer, and then she does brand ambassador. But the brand ambassador for us so I think there's a couple things in my opinion, no matter how great of a marketing plan you have, it will not be successful if your people in your business don't buy into it. And very few people focus on internal marketing, getting your own people bought into the promotions, the finance options, the brand, all those things that it takes, right, to get them excited. So the brand ambassador spends a lot of time. And these names are kind of interchangeable because apparently we like to change names, but community, a brand ambassador, is in, community leader, whatever you want to call them. But, their number one job is they understand what marketing we have going on, and they make sure internally our people are aware of it and they're bought into it. And then you have employee engagement is, people want to feel part of the brand, right? So what are we doing? What does our Christmas parties look like? What does our summer kickoff look like? What does it look like when an employee has a birthday? What does it look like when one of our technicians has his first child? What does it look like when our technician buys his first house? Like, who's responsible for celebrating these things with people? Because they're great things, right? And like, we lose sight of that sometimes of like, just come to work, their family. So it's like building that and like being intentional about it. As we scaled the organization, Paul, like my biggest challenge was when we were early on, I knew you, I knew your wife, I knew your kids, I probably knew your uncle, your grandma. Like, I knew everything about you. To then walking into a location and I know the 3 or 4 key people that I work with every day, and the other 20 people in that location, I don't know who they are. Doesn't mean I don't care about them, but I don't know them like that. And that was my biggest challenge, is like being able to speak to those things. So right now, if I was to go into one of our locations, the first person I'm going to call is the brand ambassador and say, hey, I'll be there about 10 o'clock. Can you meet me? Yes. They know what that means. They're going to be connected to my hip, and they're going to be like, hey, Trey, that's Javier. They just had their first baby 2 months ago. His wife is so-and-so. She actually works for us in the call center. Like, they'll connect all the dots for me to help me. But really, it's about it being intentional, right? And so that's a piece of it. And then the last piece is being involved in the community. They're the ones that's got the mascot on location. They're the ones in the rat van for the parade. They're the ones making sure that where all the chamber events or whatever's going on. And then they also handle anybody that's in a leadership position. For me, our culture is really around servanthood. And a lot of people don't know what that really means or hasn't really put themselves out there to do that. So our leaders, I expect them to be on some type of nonprofit board. And typically our brand ambassador is who's making sure they get on one. Sometimes meaning put them on one and let them know they're on one. So.
No, that's awesome, because as we know, right, like in any business, it's all about the people. And if you can build that culture within your team, they're going to then, when they're talking to customers, whether they're a CSR, they're a dispatcher, they're a technician, whoever they are, and they love working where they're working, That's going to go into the customer experience. It's going to be a better customer experience, and just becomes this flywheel that it just continues to make a bigger impact. So we left off in 2018. You got to 28 million bucks. Where then did you take the company next from there?
Yeah. So we continue to scale the business, but then, like most people, let's see that here that's in the trade state, like what is private equity, and we were being bombarded with opportunities or offers, and begin to see a lot of my friends sell their businesses. Of like, what's going on here? I'm still young. I feel young. Got a lot of runway left. I wasn't really ready to step away. Also, my team and I had still a lot to prove. So when we went down that road to just explore it, and just came to the conclusion, like, no one has a 10-year outlook. Like, everybody talks about how much money I'm going to make, like, and all those things are great, but I had a lot of people that brought me to the dance, and I love working with a lot of people every day, and I just couldn't get comfortable with it. So, went back and forth, had some conversations, and then just elected, like, hey, there needs to be a group built that understands the long-term strategy, that understands, like, the human capital. At that point, we were 95% of our technicians were homegrown. They came through our academy. So, like, we were building loyal people, and we really had, I thought, created a lot of opportunity that was probably the most fulfilling piece of my business, that for me personally. So we created the Blue Cardinal group to really start those opportunities, and then started partnering with like-minded operators that had the same vision. Some people are ready to sunset, but they wanted their team taken care of. Some people had a great operator in the seat that wanted more opportunity. They just wasn't willing to take any additional risk to give their people more opportunity. And then there's some businesses that just, they're ready to exit, and they really didn't have a leader in place, but they needed us to get someone that would take care of their team. So those are really the type of partners we work with today.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because, I mean, you hit on it many, many times. It is all about the people, and a lot of times, not all the time, because, there's good and bad no matter where you go, but a lot of times private equity is just looking at the numbers. And I tell everybody, if you don't know how to take care of those blue collar workers, they can leave today and they'll be rehired somewhere else before the end of the day. It's all about the people. And if you don't have that long-term vision, and you're not bought in, like you said, you got homegrown people that you gave the opportunity. They obviously took it and ran with it and turned it into careers. But there's a lot of people that won't sell their business if it is to private equity, just because they've seen what happens to a lot of their people. I mean, I have clients every day who are hiring all of these technicians from private equity companies because they're like, I'm done. I'm burned out. It wasn't what they said they were going to be. It's all about the numbers, da, 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 da. So for the people out there that are interested in doing like what you've done, just give us like kind of high level. So you're like, all right, let's go start partnering, acquiring these other businesses. How did you start to put that together? When you first get started, obviously now today you've got operations in all, different states. How are you able to maintain all of your core values and mission and vision without, not like you said, not knowing everybody, and then having locations that you're just not going to be able to get to in a day?
I think that's anything with scale. Like, you got to pour into the people that lead your operations. So I mean, that's my time is spent really pouring into those people and talking to them, and we make mistakes. It's owning up to the mistakes. Culturally, there's a little different flavors. I think it's like really setting your non-negotiables, right? Because each one of these branches are going to take on the culture. To me, is an extension of the leader, and the leader then will create a culture based off what you allow him to get away with. And setting those boundaries for certain things, it's the non-negotiables is something that we try to do. And then beyond that, it's really just continue to cultivate those relationships to shape them to the leader you want to be. And ultimately, that's the extension of what that business will be. So, I mean, it's I don't have it all figured out. It's tough. It's a day to day. And just like with anything, there's emotional highs and lows. And when everything's going right, culture's pretty easy to maintain. When things are going wrong, whether that's not hitting the numbers, to your point, dealing with challenging employees at times, like, those are things that that as bad as sometimes as easy it is to ignore that because you're somewhat removed from the day-to-day operation, it's important that you insert yourself back in there, that they know, the leadership knows they have a partner in those businesses.
Yeah, for sure. So where are you guys at today? Number of locations, rough revenue?
Yeah, about 23 locations, probably creeping up 140 million of revenue. And still got a long ways to go. My unique position I'm in, I get to see a lot of $5 and $15 million businesses, and they all do, and there's a lot of different ways of doing it. I see success created all different fashions. It's been very interesting watching. But I will tell you this, as it don't matter how great a reporting you have, how great of processes you have, if you can't maintain culture and morale, none of that stuff matters. And I think your earlier comment around private equity, they got better processes and better reporting, hands down, than 99% of operators that's in the space today. What they're not great at is casting a vision that creates, a morale and a culture that people are willing to fight for, and they're willing to get up to go to work for on days they don't want to, and they know what they're fighting for. And honestly, that is the differentiator in what makes businesses successful, in my opinion.
So you go back to 2010, you're doing $1 million in revenue. Did you ever, what was your vision? Say, this is where I want to be in 15 years. Did you ever vision that it'd be this big?
It was pretty simple. It was, and honestly, it's like, if I could make, $20,000 per employee at profit, if I got 100 employees, and that was really like the math was like, how do I just multiply what and make a little bit as I scale this business per person? But no, I think the industry's been very good to me. And there's been a lot of like, I try to be prepared, but there's things that I was in a lucky position at certain times. Cash per clunkers really came out when we were really dialed in on our flips, our marketed leads and flips. So like during that whole cash for clunkers world, we started getting some momentum, and we started kind of figuring things out. So I think there's been a lot of things that aligned that allowed us to have some success, and I think more than anything, like there's 4 or 5 people that I owe the majority of my success to. They made a bet on me, and I made a bet on them, and those 4 or 5 people really what shaped where we are today.
Yeah, no, incredible story so far. To be able to do what you've done, 3rd generation, and then really, just continue to make a bigger impact, more states, more locations, all the things you've done. One of the last questions I have is, if you look back at the leader you were in 2010 to the leader you are today, is there like 1 or 2 like monumental shifts that you've realized in retrospect, like I needed to do something different as a leader? Because a 1 million to a 5 million, that's that's a different leap, to the 10, and then to the 50, to the 100. Like what's like 1 or 2 things that you had to change as a leader in order to kind of break through the next barrier?
So I get a really interesting contrast to this right now. So I started up a business. This is our 2nd year of business in the pest control space with my middle sister. And so Tiffany's a school teacher. Wanted to get out of that space. I said, let's go find a business, a home service business to buy. I understand the customer acquisition side of this, but you got to figure out the pest control side of it. But she shot me a text yesterday, and really the text was all around is letting go and understanding that you can continue to own every process in your business, and you can have every interaction, and you can bat 1,000%. But at scale, you cannot scale. There's the law of the lid. And like Tiffany said, she goes, I wish I would just been okay with only batting 900% earlier, because these people would have been like allowing these people to take over. And it was really like hers was the inbound call center side of things that she would not let go of. And, and Tiffany's done a great job. I put resources behind Tiffany. We made a small acquisition, and then we just made another one. But, what I see now is like, I spend more of my time pouring into people and empowering people than doing. And I think early on, like I took pride in doing, at my own mental expense. So looking back now, I wish I'd have got out of my own way a lot earlier and really found the right person, influenced the right person, and gave them exposure. Because I think there's exposure beyond me, and that's something we're really focused on. As my leadership will tell you, their number one job is to work themselves out of a job, and the only way you could do that is you got to get exposure what greatness looks like. You got to build the process, and you got to recruit the right people. And if you can do those three things successfully, then you can continue to repeat this and scale this business. And so that's where I spend more time today, being a creator and a coach than being a doer.
No, and when you have a big enough vision and everyone else that's along the ride, their vision can fit inside of it, you actually want people to work themselves out of a job because there's a next opportunity. And there's so many organizations where they're afraid to work themselves out of a job because then they don't think they work there anymore. So I think that's a great way to end this conversation. Last question I have for you though, Trey, is what's next? What's the 5 to 10 year vision now?
I think I want to continue, my real passion is making bets on people when they either were not willing to take a bet on themselves, didn't know how, wouldn't take the risk. And that's the most rewarding piece of mine. I've done it with, my oldest sister and me on a marketing company together, Tiffany and me on a pest control business. And we'll continue to make bets on operators every day in this business. And I just want to continue to be the silent partner of some great journeys with the people.
Love it. Trey McWilliams, thank you for coming on the show today. If our listeners want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, I think email, and it's at trey@3mcholdings.com is the best way.
There you go. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. Reach out to Trey McWilliams. Incredible story, Trey. Thank you so much for your time today coming on the show.
Thanks, Paul.
And for everyone else out there, if this episode sounds familiar or inspires you and you want to come on the show as well, send me an email, paul@thebluecollaradvisors.com. And until next time, make it a great day.